Hey guys, Ramesh here. Welcome back to React Hooks Spring Boot CRUD Full Stack Application series. In previous couple of videos, we have created get employee and update employee REST APIs. In this video, what we'll do, we'll add update functionality in our React application. Well, basically, we are going to add one more button over here in front of each and every employee, so that user can click on update button to update the corresponding employee. Alright, well, let's head over to Visual Studio Code ID and let's add update employee button. So let me switch to VS Code ID and go ahead and open list employee component, and this is the HTML table, and in a column section we're going to add one more column. Let's call it as actions. Okay, and go at a row, and here we're going to add a button. So td, and let's use link for a button. Okay, and this link internally provides anchor tag with a hyperlink. So again we need to add a bootstrap CSS class to make this link as a button. So when I add a bootstrap CSS class, let's say button info. Alright, and but link element provides two attribute to define the link for this button. So go ahead and just add two, and the link is edit employee, and then we just need to pass employee ID here dynamically. Okay, and just give a link name here, something like update. Perfect. If we can save this file and go back to browser, and you can able to see here update button is successfully added in front of each and every employee. Alright, great. And one more important here is we're going to use add employee component to perform both save employee and update employee functionality. We're not going to create a separate component for update employee. Alright, we're going to reuse a single component to perform save and update functionality. Well, now we have added a button. So next step is we need to configure routing for the link. So go to app.js, and here we need to create one more route for update employee. So go ahead and use a route here and path. Okay, and just add a link, something like edit employee, and here we need to provide ID. So this is the syntax to pass the ID dynamically, and then component, and we're going to reuse the same component, that is add employee component, and then close the route. That's it, pretty simple. Alright, so this is the second step. Next step is we're gonna write a code to make a REST API call. So go to employee service. Within employee service, we're gonna create a method. Let's say get employee by ID. Alright, and we're gonna pass employee ID as a method argument for this method, employee ID. Okay, and within this method, let's call Axios object, and we're gonna call get method because we are making a get HTTP request, and just pass the URL, that is employee REST API base URL, and then we need to pass the ID for this URL slash, and then we have employee ID. Perfect. Now this method returns a employee object. Okay, great. Now head over to add employee component again. In this component we need to retrieve ID from the URL. Right, for that we're going to use one more hook, that is use param hook. Let's say use params hook. So this hook basically provides an object that contains key value pair from the URL. So go ahead and here just type const, okay, and just get ID from use params hook. Well, once we get ID, then we can use ID to check whether we are going to perform save employee functionality or update employee functionality. Well, once we get an employee ID, what we can do is we can make a REST API call, and we pass this ID, and we will get employee object, and we populate that employee object in a form. So for that, in order to make a REST API call, we're going to use API hook. Okay, and get rid of this code and get rid of this, and here we are just passing empty because we don't have dependencies for this use effect hook, so keep empty. And within this hook we're going to call employee service dot get employee id, and we're going to pass id to this method and simply handle the response. Okay, and we're going to use again arrow function. This is the syntax, and within this method what we'll do, we'll get all the details like first name, last name, email from the response, and we'll set to the variables, state variables. So in order to set the value to variables, we're going to use methods, right? That is set first name to set first name state variable value. So go ahead and use response here, response dot data dot first name. Similarly set last name, response dot data dot last name. Similarly set email, okay, set email id, response dot data dot email id. Perfect. Now we have set first name, last name, email id from response object to state variables. Alright, here we can also have a catch block to handle the error. If there are any error while making a REST API call, that we can handle in a catch block. Alright, now what we have done, we have made a REST API call, and we have retrieved an employee object, and we have set first name, last name, email id to the state variable. And again, make sure that here we are using use effect hook, and it should be imported at the top. So go here and import use effect from React library and save here. Okay, next is here we're going to create one more method. So if you can see here in a form we have add employee text, right, header. So we need to change this dynamically. Let's say if in case of update we need to show update employee, in case of save employee we need to show add employee, right? Here I'm going to create one more method. Let's say title, something like that, and I'm going to use here arrow function again. Okay, and inside that I'm going to simply return, I'm going to check whether id is exist. I mean, if id contains some value, then we simply return h2 with the header update employee, and we're gonna pass CSS class here. Let's say text center. Okay, and in else part we simply return add employee. Okay, add employee. Well, if you can see here in a console, title is not defined, right? So we're gonna provide a const here. Now this becomes an arrow function. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use title method here. So get rid of this h2 tag here, and within a curly braces just call title method. So title method will basically dynamically return h2 header tag. So if id contains some value, then it returns h2 header with heading update employee. Otherwise it will just return add employee header. Now let's go back to Chrome browser and let us test how it works. So if you can see here update button, so go ahead and click on update button for first employee. So click on update, and there we go, our information will be populated in the form. Okay, now we can go ahead and we can update this employee details like first name, last name, and email id. In this video we just made a get employee by id REST API, and we have populated that employee details in update employee page. In next video we'll make a REST API call to send update details to the update employee REST API, and update employee REST API store that updated information into a database. Alright guys, I will see you in next video.